Today we're going to explore the cost to attend college, principally in Minnesota, but for many colleges in the Midwest, these costs are going to be pretty close. My name is Gary Schindler. I'm the Dean of Student Affairs at Riverland Community College, and I also serve as Financial Aid Director. The first point I need to make when we think about the cost to go to college is the decision to go to college. And I really want to emphasize to you is that Minnesota and much of the country is in a very unique place within the next 3 to 5 years. What is happening is that there's a great deal of retirement. About 10,000 people retire in the United States each day. And there is a need for folks to go to college. Actually, in Minnesota, we're ranked 5th in the country that by 2018, 74% of all the jobs in the state of Minnesota are going to require a college education. Now, what I mean by college education, it's as short as a 16-week certificate in web page design or network security or nursing assistant or truck driving or you name it, or it could be up to 10 years to get a doctorate degree in archaeology. And there's a need for that for those folks too, because there's so many retirements happening. So we're in a really historical place. So the message I want to convey is that when you think about the cost to go to college, also think about the opportunity to go to college, because students across the country, regardless of what age, are going to have a wealth of opportunity when it comes to job openings.
How much does it cost to attend college in Minnesota?
Well, let me just give you an overview. There's multiple types of colleges in Minnesota. Public, there's private for-profit colleges. There are our universities and our private colleges as well. Minnesota is into the 3rd year of a tuition freeze, so tuition in Minnesota has been pretty stable, and it's likely that tuition may be not moving very much the next couple of years as well. But just to give you an overview, at a public 2-year college in Minnesota, for tuition and fees for a full-time student, which would be probably an average of 14 to 15 credits a semester, minimum of 12, is going to cost about $5,500 for the year. That's just tuition and fees. For a state university like Winona State, Mankato State, St. Cloud, Moorhead, you're looking at anywhere between $8,000 to $8,500 a year for tuition and fees. University of Minnesota is in the neighborhood of $13,000 to $14,000 a year for tuition. Then you look at your private colleges. They are running anywhere between $25,000 to $40,000 a year in tuition. But again, they have a wealth of private endowments and scholarships, so a student can get some of that whittled down fairly significantly if they bring in a special skill, talent, ability to get that cost reduced. And then private career colleges, I would say, are going to be in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000 a year when it comes to tuition.
Besides tuition and fee, what are some of the other costs to attend college?
That's an important question, because it's important to know that financial aid can pay for the traditional stuff, tuition, fees, but also books, but also financial aid can be used to pay for other expenses, living expenses, transportation cost, miscellaneous personal expenses, things like car insurance. You can buy a laptop computer, for example, if you need it to be a college student. So here's a general rule of thumb when it comes to college cost. You're going to look at the cost of tuition and fees. Books are probably going to average for a full-time student, I would say, between $1,000 to $1,200 a year. And then those miscellaneous personal costs, they're called indirect costs, housing, transportation, food, miscellaneous personal. For a 9-month academic year, I would estimate $1,000 a month. So if you're going to be going to school full-time for a 9-month traditional academic school year, I would estimate you'll need between $9,000 to $10,000 to cover those costs of being a student. And then that's where part-time employment, work study, some of those other financial aid programs could cover some of those costs. And if you have enough financial aid, the excess financial aid award after your tuition is paid for is going to be dispersed to the student as an excess aid award. That's money that's meant to be used to cover living expenses that I just outlined. But again, a rule of thumb, probably $9,000 to $10,000 for 9 months of going to school part-time for incidental, and that would be rent. It could be doing a dormitory. Those prices, again, are not very different. If you compare living independently in an apartment versus living independently in a dormitory, the costs are about the same.
How does a college determine how much financial aid I can receive to cover college costs?
Okay, good question. And it's not very complicated. Every college has to come up with a cost of attendance. Total tuition, fees, books, supplies, but also personal living expenses. Then what happens, a student will fill out the FAFSA form, which is the principal aid application. That FAFSA will cover or ask a student to report income earned, family size, if they're with their parent, what the parent earned in the previous year, assets that they might have. All of that is calculated into what is called an effective family contribution. It's called an EFC. So the FAFSA form calculates the dollar amount that a student or a family can afford to spend on 1 year of college. So let's just say, for example, that a family does the FAFSA form and their EFC number, their effective family contribution, let's say it is $3,000. That means regardless of where that student goes to college, they're expected to pay $3,000 out of pocket to pay for their college expenses, all of them, tuition, fees, book supplies, personal living expenses. Let's say they're going to a college where the cost is $15,000 for the year. So what you do is you do work the math. If the cost is $15,000, if their expected family contribution is $3,000, that student could be offered up to $12,000 in financial aid. And if the expected family contribution is below, let's say, $5,200, that student will receive a Pell Grant, a small one, but they might receive a state grant. They'll be offered a student loan of probably $5,500. They may be offered work study of up to $3,000 to $4,000 a year. So that's where you could conceivably get up to a $12,000 financial aid award. And you can also throw in scholarship money on top of that. So you simply take the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution, and the balance that's left, or the figure that's left, would be what the college could offer. Now here's another example though. Let's say the cost of attendance to go to a college is $15,000 a year. Let's say that the expected family contribution is $20,000. Well, would they receive financial aid? What do you think, yes or no? Some of you are saying no. They could receive financial aid, and here's what they would be offered. They would be offered an unsubsidized federal direct student loan, so they could borrow up to $5,500, and they might be able to work institutional work study. So they might be able to still work part-time, working for the college, and they would not be accessing the financial aid program, and that student could still receive scholarship money. So even though the effective family contribution is high, there are still aid opportunities for students. They could still borrow, federal direct student loan, unsubsidized. They could maybe borrow a self-loan, that student education loan fund from the state of Minnesota. Their parents could take out a PLUS loan. They could work part-time as part of an institutional work-study program. So there's ways to finance college even though the family thinks that they maybe have too much income. So that's an overview of the cost to go to college. Okay.